Okay, good evening. I would like to welcome you to the proceedings of the Grand Rapids Public Schools Board of Education. It is Tuesday, January 22nd. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Reverend Matias, can you please take the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lewis.
Present.
Reverend Matias present. Mr. Ross.
Present.
Ms. Schottky.
Present.
Ms. Williams.
Present.
Dr. Baker. Here. Ms. Davis.
Here.
Dr. Flores.
Present.
President Grant.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda? So moved. Support. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have no celebrations today, and our student representatives are not with us. Do we have any public comment for agenda items? Reverend Matias?
We do not.
Okay. Secretary's report?
All right, well, good evening. It is cold out, isn't it? The board committee schedule, we're having a legislative committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 23rd, tomorrow, at 2:30 p.m. in room 301. Also, the ad hoc policy committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 23rd, at 5:30 p.m. in room 101. And our finance committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 28th, 4:30 p.m. in the auditorium. That is all of the announcements that I have for this evening.
Do we have a superintendent's report?
No report, Madam President.
Okay. We have 2 action items for this evening. And the first item is going to be the superintendent selection criteria posting. And so we are going to hear from MASB on those details.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be here with you tonight, and my name is Rod Green. And
would you mind putting that microphone closer to you?
Certainly. Thank you. And this is Jay Bennett, and we just obviously we're with the board for the last hour and a half working on the criteria and the timelines and things that needed to be done for the superintendent search. So just some of the highlights of it. We're going to just do a little wordsmithing on this document here. This is the criteria that will be posted with the posting. And so you can see we've got some things that were developed from the stakeholder input. And so obviously you did a great job of hearing from your stakeholders, and so we tried to incorporate all of that input into in a succinct document. If you go to the posting, a couple of things that are important to note is the salary range that the board determined is 195 to 230, and that includes salary and annuity. And we also put in some other things in regard to stats for the district. And we're going to just beef up the paragraph on the city. And the second paragraph there, we're going to have John give us a little bit more information on that. And so that will be ready to go tomorrow, hopefully. So we'll bounce this off. If approval of the board tonight, we'll bounce this off of Kristen tomorrow for final wordsmithing and then post it out. The timeline is the other big thing that was talked about. And so we decided on about 6 weeks for the posting to be out. So the posting would end on March 1st. And then we'll try to get the packet to the board by March 7th. And that will include all of the applications along with a top tier memo. And then on March 11th would be the workshop with the board to determine the candidates to be interviewed. So that workshop is open to the public. We'll do all of the work by number with the candidates. So the candidates are still confidential to everyone but the board and the consultant. And then so the public can watch us do the work, but they won't know exactly who we're talking about. But we'll try to determine who we're going to interview that night. We'll also work on the superintendent contract, which we discussed with you, and we want to make sure that we get that out, and I'll remind Kristen or Julie to do that. And then the other thing that we'll work on is the interview questions. So we'll spend some time on those things that evening. So that's on the 11th, starting at 5 o'clock. Then the interviews are going to be on a Saturday. So hopefully people can clear their schedule. March Madness isn't really kicking up too much at that point, so we should be able to get there, I hope. But starting at 9 a.m., about 70 minutes for each interview, and we're targeting 6 candidates to be interviewed on that Saturday, with a boil down to be completed afterward. And then the following Monday, so not the 18th, but the week later, the 25th, would be the second round interviews. And we're hoping to have a schedule set up where we could have some focus groups in the district, as well as a meet and greet for the candidates that are remaining before the final interviews that evening with a public presentation. So then at that point on the 25th, the board, could possibly narrow it to 1 on that night, or it could go till the next board meeting, which would be maybe the 8th of April. So that's kind of the tentative timeline at this point. And we will post out those dates so the candidates know when they apply, they will start looking at their schedule and making sure that they can make those dates, in particular the first round interview. Questions from board members? Does that sound like a pretty good summary of what we did? So what we would be asking you tonight is to approve that summary and basically move us forward with the timeline and posting and the criteria as we discussed.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the superintendent selection criteria posting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Reverend Matias?
Okay. Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Reverend Matias, yes. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shasky?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
President Grant?
Yes. All right, wonderful, thank you.
And just one other thing, the only other thing we didn't quite decide, and we want staff to work on a little bit, is where we're gonna do the interviews. So if you're gonna do the interviews in here, how would we set it up so the candidate, maybe didn't have their back completely to the audience? So we'll ask John and some other top people to just think that through a little bit and help us with that decision.
Yes, we'll get a short list together and narrow it down to
Okay.
one.
Rod, one quick question, I'm sorry, and forgive me if you said this already. Where can people find the posting? Where will it be posted?
We'll put it on your website. So when we get this ready to go, there'll be a link that you can actually go from your website, and then that'll take you to MASB's website. So it'll be right there for people.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Great working with you,
Yes,
and
thank
we
you.
look forward to it.
Thank you. Next, we have the letter of agreement with Gaines interim measures. And Superintendent, the board would request to hear from Mr. Obers.
So actually, I have 2. So I'd ask Larry Obers and Dr. Maida Gano to come forward, please.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Grant, Superintendent Neal, and board members. This is a letter of an agreement, and it's a contract renewal. We've used Gaines before to prepare our high school students, and this would be to prepare our 8th grade students, which we have 1,100 8th grade students, to prepare them for the April PSAT.
They have not had any special preparation in the past?
No, they have. We've been working all along.
Okay, so this just is an extension of what
It's
we're
an
already doing?
It's a very deep extension.
I'm sorry,
It's very deep.
Okay.
Very intensive.
better. You're saying better?
Better.
It's good.
We've used the company before.
Okay.
So we know we know their work. We used them at the high school level.
All right, so I guess my question was, have they been using something special for the junior highs up until now?
We've been using PSAT prep but not specific to the analysis that this firm is going to give us.
Yeah, this was just a, excuse me, a contract that came up really after just before we were let out, before the holidays. And we need to get this thing going prior to Finance Committee next week. And of course, the board then would not approve it until the following board meeting, which is why we brought it to the board this evening.
So I didn't really see any specific information on our board materials. Can you give us some more details or what?
The company does a gap analysis. They analyze. So our students, all our 8th grade students district-wide, which are 1,100, took a pre-test in October. This company would analyze the results and do a gap analysis on weaknesses and strengths. And they would, given our weaknesses and strengths, they would prepare quizzes for English language arts and mathematics that we could give to our students, given their weaknesses and strengths, and then we would give the quizzes, reteach. It's a school improvement cycle, so that they are preparing for the April exam. 8th graders in Michigan have never taken the PSAT prior to this.
But this is the kind of work you do with the high school kids?
Yes, similar to that, yes.
You do the analysis and so on?
Correct, we've done that before.
Okay.
And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do we have an understanding of what the analysis given us in return as far as improvement?
Yes, they would do a gap analysis.
I mean, on the previous, you said they've worked with high school students, and how has that compared with the actual
positive
improvement?
results.
Do we know the percentage of increase?
I would have to look to Dr. Gorman on the SATs, but I don't know that offhand.
I would ask that you rephrase the question. I'm not real sure when you say the percentage of increase. Are you asking how much of an increase did we have on the ACT or SAT since I took this position?
No,
Is that
no,
what
no.
you're asking? I'm not understanding the question.
Particularly with regards to their, let's say last year.
Has it been helpful?
Correct. So,
And if so, how much
Exactly.
for high school?
Correct.
Okay, so I'd ask Ron to come up to give, I don't know that we can give you that level of detail, but we
Okay.
can absolutely tell you the
Thank
gains that we've made over the years.
Sounds good.
So good evening.
Good evening.
So as it relates to the high school piece, when we started working with Gaines Education Group, we were doing the ACT in the state of Michigan. What we did with high schools is, of course, we had Gaines analyze our data. Students were placed into score bands based on their practice assessment or a diagnostic assessment. We would have students who had relatively low scores. We'd have students who were on the cusp of college readiness and those who were at or above college readiness. And what Gaines did is they individualized students by these 3 assessments. And the growth we saw at one point is over a 2-year period of time when we started working with Gaines. From a growth perspective, we outperformed every school district in the county except for 2. And we firmly believe it's this individualized approach that we took, because it's not just teach this particular content to all students, it's differentiate the content and then focus on the areas on which students are struggling. The best example is if a student does not know how to use, let's say, a semicolon, teach the student how to use a semicolon. Less on test prep, more on content recovery. And this is essentially what we're going to do with the middle school piece, because as Dr. Gunnell said, this is the first year they're taking the PSAT, which is the College Board's examination, which aligns to the SAT, which the high school students take. So we've seen nice gains over a 7-year period of time.
So are we talking this 8th grade class or next year's 8th grade
This
class?
8th grade class.
This 8th grade class, this is the first time that 8th graders in Michigan take the PSAT. And they took it in October as a pre-test.
Okay.
In April, it will be taken again, the real thing, and it counts like the M-STEP.
Okay, all right. And would they, the Gaines people then do the analysis this year on the eighth graders?
They not only do the analysis, they provide the materials for the teachers to use to address the areas on which students are having success or struggling. So it's very individualized.
So that they will be working off the test, the PSAT test that they had taken this fall?
They're creating resources based on the practice
Okay.
assessment or the diagnostic assessment.
Okay, all right, good. Mhm. Sounds good.
Just a follow-up, if I may. So how are we helping our teachers be able to utilize this? So it sounds like you have professional development and other kinds of strategies that you're using to help our teachers be able to.
Yes, we have eighth grade teachers, content teachers going to professional development, aligning the curriculum to PSAT and the PSAT format, because it's different than the M-STEP. The testing piece is different. So we will have a workshop for principals too. So it's not only teachers, but also administrators.
Dr. Flores, did you have a question?
And the data that's used, or the process that Gaines identifies, is that process carried out in the regular classroom, or is that in an after-school approach, or what?
So Dr. Flores, would you like me to speak to the high school piece, and then Dr. Gunn can talk about this plan?
Thank you. And then my second question, if I could, just to add it, then I'll be quiet, is what is the cost to us?
Okay. So with the high school piece, what we did is we essentially mandated bell ringer activities. So in every single class at the beginning of the hour, we're focusing on these skills gaps. What we also did at the high school level is we've had different iterations of a college readiness class, which the entire class period for our juniors, the students who are going to take the examination, are focusing on those skills gaps for 1 hour every single day. So it's really a double dosage. It's in all the core classes the first 10 minutes, and then it's also 1 hour throughout the day during the junior year, which the content or the curriculum is essentially the diagnostic assessment in those skills gaps we're addressing. So Dr. Gunno can speak to the middle school.
So at the
piece.
middle school level, that's why we're having this gap analysis, because then the teachers will go to the professional development on the 24th of January, whereby there will be a intense curriculum alignment to the different pieces of the PSAT so that it will be embedded into their daily curriculum. So this has to be a daily curriculum embedding in all 4 content. So we're working not only with the ELA content specialist and mathematics, but we're also working with social studies and science. Because the science and the social studies teachers will be reinforcing the skills of the PSAT in their daily content. So there's sentence starters, there's writing that needs to be embedded into the curriculum. The PSAT is different than the M-STEP, whereby they'll give you a 2-page literary work, and then you have to go back and answer questions from that.
Thank you.
Yes, for cost as well.
Cost?
Yeah.
Oh, the cost, the total cost is $36,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Reverend Matias?
Okay, Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Reverend Matias, yes. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Flores, Dr. Flores? Sorry.
Yes.
President Grant?
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
Reverend Matias?
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Reverend Matias, yes. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Shotke?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes. Do we have public comment for non-agenda items?
We do not.
Superintendent's comments?
No comments.
Ms. Lewis?
No comment. That's the first time, so it's been a slow 2 weeks, you know.
That's a comment.
Oh.
Madam President, all right.
Oh, I love you, Christian.
I just have to say that we have a hard-working board, very aggressive. Our meeting prior to this was very aggressive in terms of clearly the community has spoken, and then as a board, we're really looking at moving forward, not only with a superintendent search and finding the right person, but really it being consensus, and not just to say yes, but really that we are all committed to seeing the success of our future superintendents. So it's just a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Dr. Flores?
No comment.
Dr. Baker?
Yeah, just agreeing with Reverend Matisse's assessment. We have a big job, and it's because we have big shoes to fill, and I would feel sorry about that if it wasn't for your posting on social media about how fun life is going to be. That's my only comment.
Ms. Davis?
No comment. That's good.
Mr. Ross? Ms. Shockey?
No comment this evening.
Meeting is adjourned.